SEC football. It just means more. Now back to your favorite bearded duo, Todd and Marty.
Welcome back to another episode of the Under Review podcast. It's me, the main man, Marty, with the best beard in the land. And to my left, your right, however that works, Cody is back with us. No beard. Well,
Scruffies.
You got like a 2.5 o'clock shadow. Episode 49. I believe that's where we're at. Kind of last minute production because we communicate really well because we're a bunch of men. Let's hear from Chuck, then we'll get into it.
This episode of the Under Review podcast is brought to you by Chuck's Heating and Air. Chuck has over 40 years of service and experience with residential services. He services most makes and models. He is Alabama licensed, bonded, and insured, and locally owned and operated. Are you hot and you're supposed to be cool? Are you cool and you're supposed to be hot? Then you've got a problem. Call Chuck. Area code 256-892-2757. Again, 256-892-2757. Chuck's Heating and Air.
Always another thank you again to Chuck's Heating and Air for all he does for us and all that he can do for you.
I saw him drive through Pell City the other day at the red light.
And I know he was happy to be in Pell City. He likes Pell City like he's like going to Atlanta. Again, a warning, this episode of Under Review podcast are clearly the opinions of the crew. This was a lot of time and effort that went into this. Whether it may be right or wrong, that is for us to decide. And if you don't like it, get your own podcast.
A lot of effort went into this. It took us about 30 minutes.
It did, yeah. But no, like I said, how's your week been, man?
Oh, it's been a fantastic week other than dropping a 60-pound case of chicken on yourself. Yeah.
Instead of egg on your face, you got chicken on your hip.
Yeah.
I guess could be worse. I mean, football news, the East-West game was Thursday. I think, bless the team, but I think Peyton Thorne was starting. I didn't get to see any of it. Now, me and Brittany sat down. We watched a good bit of the Senior Bowl, the Reese's Senior Bowl, and they showed the Reese's lava cake thing like 6,000 times, and we're on a diet, and I'm a diabetic, so I'm really thinking, she says, we have to watch that one more time. I'm getting some.
Oh, well, I mean, if I'd have seen a Reese's lava cake, I would have been trying to figure out how to get a piece.
Look, I told her, I said, look, we can just get one split in half, and so my sugar don't get too high, and we don't get too
I think one bite would have spiked your sugar.
It would have spiked it, but it'd probably been worth it. Well, let's jump back real quick. So during the Senior Bowl, there was a few players highlighted in there. Jalen Milroe, Jackson Dart were the quarterbacks or two of the four quarterbacks for the American team. And Jackson Dart really did stellar. I don't know any numbers or anything like that because literally we just threw this all in together. But he had good passes. Milroe struggled a little bit. His offensive line wasn't as good as the Crimson Tide line, but he still struggled throwing the ball. So were you trying to get up some numbers?
I was going to try and see if I could pull up some numbers.
But I talked too fast. And I think defensively wise, I think Auburn had Eugene Asante, who I know he had a couple of tackles. Jacquez Hunter on offense, he did have one. Alabama had a few linemen in. Dupree got targeted a few times, the tight end from Alabama. And there was two or three other guys that we know the uniform, but we didn't know. There was a linebacker for Alabama, number 5, Eric Smith, I believe. We didn't know what else he done. And we've seen a few other players, but nothing really stood out. It went down to the last 7 seconds that the American team did win on the last play. They threw it to the tight end from TCU, whose brother was killed in the New Orleans attack. And it was real sentimental, and it was a really fun game to watch since I haven't sat down and watched one in probably a couple of years. And, Brittany was like, why didn't we go to this game? We didn't know it was so close. She said, because they giving out free Reese's. I'm good to that. Did you find any numbers?
You got to be kidding me. It pulls this up and tells you got to download a PDF.
Of course. But, beside the point, that was like football news, and we got the Super Bowl next week. I mean, I mean, you got a ton of Alabama players. Jalen Hurts, Landon Dickerson,
Devontae Smith.
Yeah, Devontae Smith, and I think there's one more other guy from Alabama. Now, and I'm not sure about on the Kansas City.
I don't want to talk about that team.
No, I don't like them either. But nonetheless, if they pay the refs as much as they pay Taylor Swift to be there, I guess it would be fine. Well, I guess let's not. We'll jump into what we're going to talk about today, or this episode. So as last minute productions here, we're going to do the top SEC teams in the last 10 years. I didn't even put 10 on there if you're watching. In the last year. So we rounded it off to 10 to go into that. And starting at the bottom, we did the top 5, but we went back and looked at a few others. What was Vandy's record again? We'll take a.
It's not going to take me that long to get down there.
We'll jump back to the screen for the third time, and we'll go over some of the worst or best.
That one's Arkansas. Vandy is right here. Vandy's was overall record of 47-74 with a 38.8% winning percentage. 0 East titles and 0 conference titles.
And no Heisman.
No Heisman winners.
Yeah, they've had a good quarterback. Jay Cutler was there back in his heyday, but nothing super big. But we've known this about Vandy. That's why we were so shocked to see how well they done this year. Give me another team out of there for you.
Let's see. Arkansas is pretty down there, 49-73. Again, 0-0.
Yeah, we've known Arkansas's had a good player here and there, same as Kentucky.
This was pretty shocking, though. Kentucky is almost like at a 50% winning percentage.
Heavens to Betsy, I thought it would be a way lot lower than close to 50%. Scroll down. Let's get one or two more before we jump into the top 5.
Tennessee.
What's Tennessee's numbers?
62 and 60 with a 50.8% winning percentage. But I think a lot of that is coming from over the last 2 or 3 seasons with
Hendon Hooker.
Josh Heupel.
Josh Heupel has really turned the pro. After Former left back in the 90s, when I guess Peyton Manning, I guess that would have been more than 20 years ago.
Pruitt took over there, didn't he? Jeremy Pruitt.
Pruitt, and wasn't Kiffin there?
No, Kiffin didn't go there.
No, because he was at USC and then went somewhere else.
He went to Alabama from USC, didn't he? And then went to.
And I know people holler and listen to us thinking, "No, he didn't go that, you dummies." But I thought there was somebody else because there was a whole coaching catastrophe with Tennessee right there. But no, they're on the up and up. I mean, this is the last 10 years, so I mean, it's not it's just kind of a screenshot because everybody listening to the show who follows anything, your top 3, 4, or 5 already. So let's do one more. Let's go to number 6. Let's see who barely missed it.
Barely missed it is going to be your Texas A&M Aggies.
Wow, not really a shocker. What's their numbers?
85-41 with a 67.5% winning percentage.
No
0
conference titles, no Heismans, no anything like that. Which I think they had a really good shot.
Actually, was Manziel past the 10-year mark?
When did Manziel? No, if he did, it would have been really close.
Because I think Johnny Manziel may have been.
He was their last one, but they did. At one point, Dak Prescott, I believe, was in the Heisman race, whether it was on the outside looking in bracket.
Johnny Manziel was 2012,
so he just missed it. But nonetheless, they just missed it. But now we're going to jump in teams. We got a few numbers on. So bringing in at number 5 is, I guess, our team, or not our team, but mine and Todd's team, the Auburn Tigers. If we would have went 20 years, that would have had the national title with Cam and the really explosive players. And if you go a little bit further back than that, you go to 2007, 2008, where it was Jason Campbell, Cadillac, and them guys like that when Tuggertville was down there. But over the last 10 years, Auburn's got a 77-52 record with a winning percentage of 59.7, which is pretty good. And Auburn has lost a lot of that in the last couple of years, all besides, I guess, the 14 season or 15 season?
Yeah.
With
it's 13.
13 with Malzahn and the guys like that. But over the last 10 years, one conference all out conference title, 2 SEC West titles, and no Heisman in the last 10 years. I mean, yes, Auburn's had 3 with Cambo and Pat, but really hadn't had the super talent as we've had in them guys the last couple of years on the plan. We've had really good players on there, but not none that stand out. I mean, Seth Williams was a good one. He had some off-field problems.
Jarquez would have
I thought Jarquez was probably one of the best running backs in the SEC last year, he got highlighted a little bit today during the ball game. I know he had 2 receptions and a couple runs. But no, for an Auburn fan, I could definitely want this to be better, but I'm out of 10 years being number 5 is not bad. Not bad in there. Your take with Auburn being number 5?
So, my take at number 5 is I think, like you said, they've lost a lot of that over the last, I'd say, 5 or 6 years.
Well, maybe even sorry to interrupt, but a little bit farther back when you go back to Todd's favorite coach at Auburn, Harson's, and that debacle, and then the tenure ending with the Malzahn experiment, which did lead us to one of them titles, or 2 of them West titles, and a conference title. So most definitely right was
But I think if you give Hugh Freeze, I think this season you're going to see Auburn kind of peak to a winning season.
Mm-hmm.
I think this is where it's probably going to change a little bit. I think the last 2 or 3 years has really been a true rebuilding process for Auburn, because with Harsin and the board, you lost a ton of players. You didn't do any recruiting. And when Hugh Freeze takes over, he takes over with it's kind of like the Saban era back in 2007 when he first took over Alabama. Yeah. He took over with barely any talent.
Mm-hmm. And then within 2 and 3 years, he's already, and he lost some, I won't say key games there, but when they lost to, was it Furman or
UL Monroe?
Yeah. What was that Saban they ran through us like piss through a tin horn or whatever it was? What's one of my favorite Nick Saban's?
And I hate to compare it, but it being a rivalry game, you look at it now as it's with Kalen DeBoer taking over, he was a little bit more stabilized. With Hugh Freeze taking over, he didn't hardly have anything. He's had to build everything that he's got coming in this year, and so I think that this is where Auburn really. It's got them projected dropping from where they're at to number 7 in the next,
kind of
10 years.
Yeah.
But my opinion alone, if the board leaves Hugh Freeze alone and lets him do what he's doing, my opinion alone is that projection's wrong, and Auburn either stays in the top 5 or moves up into the top 3.
To where LSU, I get that.
They're going to be around in there somewhere.
And I do think last year was a full rebuilding year. Auburn has no reason not to be a plus 500 team this year with the talent they got coming in, and even with the young freshmen like Cam Coleman and them guys that develop better. And our DBs, 3 of our main DBs were all freshmen, so. If Auburn doesn't start trending up with at least, I would say at least 3 more wins than we had last year, I think the fans are going to start to turn, and Hugh Freeze is going to start to sour a little bit. So, anything else with Auburn?
I think we've covered
as much as we want to, I guess, or I could probably talk for another hour. So we're going to look at our number 4 spot. Goes to the Florida Gators. The last 10 years has not been great to Florida, but it's done enough, I guess, in this time with that been Urban Meyer when they were still winning decently and got these titles.
Let's see who your Florida coaches are.
Because I know over the last 3 or 4 years it's been drowning in the swamp. But the overall 10 years, 80-46, 63.5% winning percentage, which is not bad at all. But I think that come from when Urban was there. This is definitely not Steve Spurrier era. No, Urban was with Tebow and them.
You got. It looks like.
I forgot Muschamp went to
Dan Mullen.
Oh yeah. Okay, I did forget about them. So okay, I understand why they have dropped a little bit. Muschamp, a excellent coordinator at Auburn, then I believe at South Carolina as well. I think he had the reins for 1-2 years maybe. Then the Dan Mullen experience, it soured as well. But you still, I mean, not bad. Still 4 SEC West titles, no conference titles, and no Heisman's. But that and yeah, too, thank you. This was when we were giving out West and East titles before what we went to this year was best team up, best man up, stuff like that. So, and I still think Florida is still can be trending down. I know they've picked up a few guys, and they've had some good players come in, and with the spike at the end of their season doing really well, I believe they won their bowl game.
I think they did.
And if not, my brain slips me. I've hit my head once or twice since I was born. But no, I see Florida still trending and down. I don't know. What's it say for the next 10 years for them?
It says that they're projected at number 6, but honestly, in my opinion, I see them dropping more closer to like 8, 9, or 10, somewhere around that bottom portion.
I think something more, I won't say miraculous happens here at Florida, where they become a top contender in the SEC in maybe not in the next couple years, but if something does, it possibly could be in the 10 years. I think if Napier has another trash season, he could be out, but he did prove to earn his stake at the end of the season, rolling off 2 or 3 good wins to put Florida in a bowl.
And that's exactly what I was about to say. Really and truly for Florida, it's going to depend on coaching and recruiting.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not going to really so much say transfer portal because, we're going to cover that later.
Yeah.
But what I am going to say is a big thing now is Lane Kiffin actually said this best. He said, you're not actually recruiting players out of high school anymore. It's now who can have the highest bid.
Oh, yeah. There's a whole ton of cussing, debating about that with the NIL, the transfer portal, because I know that's going to be a whole roundtable, at least the NIL and how the transfer portal affects college football and what it has done to it, how it's turned into who's got the most money.
Well, what I was going to say is, put this transfer portal aside for a minute and just look at your NIL as far as your recruits coming in out of high school. You're talking about paying, like Ryan Williams, for example, 17 years old. You're talking about paying these kids millions of dollars, like $2 to $5 million, $2 to $6 million dollars.
Your 5-star high quality players are getting $4 and $5 million.
And these kids may not come from high quality areas. You know, that's probably the most money they've ever seen.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's why I'm saying now, really and truly, how do you recruit to players coming out of high school? That's where I really think Florida is going to struggle, because I don't think that they have the funds like some of these
like
other
Texas
schools
and Alabama and bigger schools.
They
even
can play these big.
But now
players.
down in Florida too, with recruiting, you're still going to have to battle with Florida State and Miami.
That's it.
That's the biggest thing, and especially like how Auburn, Alabama recruit, they fight for recruits all the time, and especially with as big as teams that the state of Florida has. Florida, Miami, even
USF is even getting.
Yes, Malzahn and the guys down there. FIU is a smaller school, but now granted, they're not going to bring in a 4 or 5-star without having to pay him, and I don't think they have the funds either. But then again, like you said, these kids who don't come from much, and then they have something. It's pretty much like giving the keys to, or the the inmates are running the asylum kind of thing. And don't mean that in a derogatory way or anything, but they don't know what to do. Kid in the candy store, they want to, of course, help their parents out, have nice things that they may have never had. Then that's when wrong people get involved in their life and stuff like that. And then it can turn into, speaking of Florida, like that tragic situation with Aaron Hernandez. But I think those, beside the point, I think the people he had in his life, and I know he had other problems, but it does that. I think there's going to be a whole lot more with that. And I think, too, with that NIL, the social media, I've never even thought about this way till now, is social media plays tons more than it used to back in the days, because, heck, MySpace, they really didn't have all this.
He ended up in space.
Yeah. You can look at stuff on your phone, they can post pics here and there and do this, and it makes them more available, and I think that's where more trouble can come too. So now let's finally move on a little bit. Let's pause for some hydration.
High quality H2O.
Yeah, well, it's probably not Bobby Boucher good, but it's Sam's Club good, I guess. So let's jump into our top 3, as it says on the screen, top SEC teams in the last years, but we're referring to the last 10 years. So in that third spot is no shocker here, is going to be the LSU Tigers. I guess they could kind of went back and forth with our number 2 team, but LSU with a record in the last 10 years, 90 for 37, with a 70.8 winning percentage, 1 SEC title, 1 conference title. Didn't they have a national title, Joe Burrow?
Actually, yeah. It didn't put it on. It didn't put it on there, but they did have a national title.
Yeah.
In that with Joe Burrow.
Yeah, with Joe Burrow in 2019, also winning the Heisman, and last year's Heisman winner Jaden Daniels. And I think a lot of this success of this is to the but to the fruits of
Ed Ogeron.
No, Les Miles. Ogeron, yes, he did get him there, but he had more talent. Ogeron. Ogeron is a decent coach. He's not as bad as Gene Chizik that Auburn had won a title. But Ogeron is a player's coach. But I think a lot of this over the last year, really a Les Miles, because what I said in the last episode, he was 40-2 at home at night by himself. So I really think that comes back to the farther. Now, Brian Kelly's got his work cut out for him as they stuttered a little bit early in the season, but kind of wrapped it around. They had a lot of quarterback issues there, and I think this will be his 3rd year. Mm-hmm. And hopefully he got his feet set. Now, LSU can recruit good. So, and LSU has a lot of things to help them in recruiting as the city and stuff like that. So, I think LSU could stay right here. What's their trajectory and stuff like that?
Tied for number 4 with Oklahoma by 2032.
I don't think Oklahoma can sustain in the SEC. Now, granted, they are one of them teams that have money. They have Texas oil money, as is the other school, where they can compete with that, but I don't think it will be as good as the years of Bob Stoops and with Adrian Peterson and them guys. But no, LSU has had, so many good, like with Daniels, Burrow.
But the question is, with Brian Kelly, does anybody else think that he struggled a little bit at Notre Dame to have consistency?
I believe so. Yeah, he's never been. Did he do any NFL stuff and then come back?
I don't think he did. I think he went straight from Notre Dame to.
Where was he at before Notre Dame? Do you remember?
I don't know that.
Well, look it up and I'll ramble. But no, like I said, so many and LSU is. I would consider them as mostly known for being a defensive team. The Jeffersons that have played for LSU, so many good players. Wes Weeks from last season. And I like that because I always think defense wins championships. Projectually, I don't like that there, but let's see. He was at Cincinnati, Central Michigan, and then 2003 way back at Grandview State. So he went from Cincinnati to Notre Dame. I guess where he got more popular. And then things went awry. Then I think he maybe stayed out. I don't know. I thought there was in between from that where if he did broadcasting or did something else. But I think he's got his work cut out. And I think LSU can stay in this area 4, maybe 5 in the next 10 years to do that. But again, a side note, I don't think Oklahoma will be anywhere near that as far as being a top tier team in the SEC. Texas, maybe.
Texas is on the rise.
I think so. Now we'll see how after recruiting with Manning through the 2 years of Manning, if he even stays the full. So we'll look at number 2 here. I forgot it took 2 clicks. The Georgia Puppy Dogs, which is no surprise. This has been
the Kirby Smart era right here. You know, overall record of 98-28. You know, with a winning percentage of 77.7%. You know, 5 SEC titles, 1 conference title, and I want to say 2. I could be wrong, but I want to say 2 national titles in those 10 years.
I think so. We'll check it up, but I think it is 2. No Heisman winners. The last Heisman, Herschel Walker, back in '82. But no, Kirby Smart, coming from the Nick Saban tree, has really been stellar the last, for sure, 5 years. Because remember, Stetson Bennett won 2 titles.
Yeah, let's see.
Pretty sure.
National, 17, 21, and 22.
So 3.
3 times.
So 3, man. We must have marked on that one. But yeah.
Not by much.
No, well, that's the story of my life. But no, Georgia has really done, I guess, Nick Saban-esque type things. But again, the Kirby Smart, really a fiery coach. I enjoy watching him as far as getting his team ready. A little brash sometimes, but I don't mind brash. I think sometimes you need to get somebody's tail to figure it out. What's their projections for the next 10 years?
Projection, no surprise here. Number 1.
I'm definitely okay with that because we know who the number 1 team is, and we'll get into the number 1 team, but I don't see this being an issue here with them being over the next 10 years.
If you keep Kirby Smart doing what he's doing and everything, I think the staff that he's got, if there's no branch out there, everybody's pretty happy, and Georgia continues to pay these guys competitively. I think that you see Georgia slowly creep into that number 1 spot. I think Kirby Smart is going to be a guy that does eventually, I don't know if you would say surpasses Nick Saban numbers, but I think he puts up something similar to Nick Saban numbers. I'm not going to say he's going to break that record, but I think that he gets close to that record.
Well, say he's got 3 now. I don't know if he had anywhere else, but if he's got 3, Saban and Bear Bryant's at 7, right?
Well, and I'm not even talking about national titles. I'm just talking about win
percentage,
win-loss ratio right there,
I think so, and it's as much as an Auburn fan to say, but Nick Saban is the greatest. Yes, even I like him better than Bryant. Just things Saban was able to do, but no surprise there. And if I'm not saying this Alabama team is down, but they've got a lot of questions in the next 10 years. And again, this goes back to how college football has changed through the NIL, transfer portal, social media. Is you're pretty much now getting, like basketball has done for so many years, or starting to get more prevalent now, is the one and dones, which I was a big Duke fan back in the day, and still like to watch their ball games, but that never happened at Duke. Mike Krzyzewski really had his team focused on like the Chris Duhons, them were 4-year guys, J.J. Reddicks, John Shire, but once it got up to where it was like Zion Williams and some of them guys in that era, even with Calipari, I think Calipari was the one and done coaches. I've heard him call that once or twice when he was at Kentucky, because like Karl Anthony Towns and some of them other guys that come through, it was one and done. And now that's coming to football, which I don't like, because I like to see these players progress and do better. if they have the right mindset, they can do that to want to better their craft, or are they just looking at money?
Well, I think a lot of it speaks on how your coach is, and and how your program is. Are you a team style? And I'm going to kind of go to the Cam Newton thing here for a minute. After Cam won the national title with Auburn, that was kind of a one and done season for him. Let's look at that positive. He goes to Carolina and plays with them, and I don't think wins a Super Bowl, but I mean he
won MVP. He won all the.
And that's what I was about to say. I knew he won. I knew he won MVP.
Yes, he won it in 4 or 5, like Rookie of the Year. Went to Super Bowl 50 and got beat.
And see, but they asked him about would you rather have the MVP or would you rather have the Super Bowl ring? And he said, I would much rather have the MVP because I did my job and I did my part.
But then to me, and yes, I'm a Cam Newton fan, but then I see what you're saying to that, but it takes me to the fact is he's saying like himself that he did his job, but everybody else has to do theirs.
Well, what I'm saying is like, are these players now with the NIL going to be, I did my job, they didn't do theirs? Are we going to be?
They'll go somewhere else.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah, they'll most definitely go somewhere else.
But what I see with Georgia and what I see with like some of LSU and Texas, what I see with those teams is those teams are actually teams that they have one goal as a whole, and that's to win a title. That's to win a title. All they care about is getting hardware. They're not worried about some of them are worried about money.
Well, let's just not to interrupt you here on this, but we say all this. We talk about Georgia. Look at one of the biggest transfer. Carson Beck leaves Georgia to go to Miami,
and that's
for money and his girlfriend. Now, I'm not saying this wasn't the best situation for Carson Beck, but
well, I mean, after all the fans have talked so much crap about Carson Beck, and I mean, no offense, please do not. If Carson Beck ever sees this, please do not get mad. But like fans bashing about his looks and everything too.
Oh, Timmy from South Park.
I mean, I'm just saying. I mean, if your girlfriend went to bat for you on the internet, would you not transfer to?
I mean, Philly college kids.
I'm just saying. But I mean, you toss it up, and I'm not bringing Cam Newton up to bash him, but I'm bringing up the fact of do we actually have true team players now, or is everybody?
I think it's a few and far between. I think there is still some, but then we talk about Georgia leading into that Miami point. Look at Cam Ward. That was the most disgusting display of teams. I don't know if it's teammanship, laying out the last half on the winning drive for Miami to win the bowl game. They end up losing. So selfish. I mean, yes, I understand you're thinking of your future, but if you get hurt, but I'm saying if I've spent the last 2 or 3 years with these guys, going back to back for them, working out with them day in, day out, going to class, doing all that, these are my brothers. I would cut my leg off and beat a dog in the street with it. And he said, to heck with you, I want to do my own thing.
We'll go to Scatabo.
Oh, most definitely. Cam Scatabo, Arizona State.
Yeah, you look at that's a team. That's what I'm saying. Like you don't find many players like Cam that's gonna really fight for his brothers. I mean, to be honest with you, there's probably several more of them out there. Ashton Genty. I mean, he gave it everything he had, and you could tell he ran hard.
You see, and there's a lot of players that go unnoticed that do that just they play their role. There's a lot of guys, and like even Jacquez had a lot of numbers, but he was the team guy. I think he got foreshadowed over Hugh Freeze's coaching to a certain spot, but that's and I think he could have been a whole lot better. And there's a lot of players like that now. Pavia from Vanderbilt, one of the breakout players this season, and is coming back because he said he wanted to be back, and he said I think one of his quotes is he wanted to bring the anchor down. So I'm all for that. So it's I'm gonna say college football is getting worse, but it's going to be crazy and hectic to keep up with now that we're full into this.
And I know we kind of went down a rabbit hole there,
Yeah,
but if you think about it, ultimately saying if Georgia continues doing what they're doing and creating team players like ETN, he's coming back for another season because he said there's unfinished business at Georgia. So you've got players that are coming back. If Georgia continues doing what they've done over the last 10 years.
For the next 10 years? Yeah.
I think Georgia's going to be fine, and they'll be the new number one.
In the next, when we're looking, we're still
20. When you'll be 80 and I'll be 50.
Yeah. See there, you can kiss it all the way at my elbow. So let's jump into our number one team, which if you listen to this and you even turned on a college football game, or even if you've lived under a rock, you should know this. But of course, the number one team is going to be the Alabama Crimson Tide. I mean, wow. In the last 10 years, they've lost 13 games. 13 games. 128 in the win column, a 90.7 winning percentages. How many titles?
They got 7 SEC West titles, 7 conference championships, and 6 national championships over the last 10 years.
And they lost that one to Georgia.
And they lost one to Georgia.
So, which is still SEC. And that's all a tribute to the Nick Saban, the GOAT. Having 3 Heisman winners, 2015 Derrick Henry, 2020 Devontae Smith, Bryce Young in 2021. Thank you. There you go. My brain had it leaking out my ears. And they've also had other players that have been in the race that just didn't win it. And I think this goes back to all Saban, his coaching style, his willing to be that player's coach. And he wants more out of them than just football. He wants men after they leave the University of Alabama. They'll have something to fall back on. And his intensity is second to none. I think that's why he wanted the best for his players, and that's why he got the best out of his players. 6 titles in 10 years, countless awards for him. The team is like different awards for the offensive line, defensive guys. We probably couldn't count how many All-Americans and draft picks that has Saban over the last 10 years. So, no surprise here. What is their projection for the next 10 years?
The next 10 years, they only drop down. So basically what happens is in the next 10 years is Alabama and Georgia are going to swap spots. Alabama drops to number 2, Georgia goes to number 1. That's basically how you're looking at that.
Which is no surprise because not the next experiment, but if the board don't work out, let's say in the next 3 or 4 years, it's going to be another coaching search. Then, again, the flood of recruits are going to come in, they're going to leave. So, and I definitely do like the 1 and 2 for Alabama and Georgia. But I think it's going to start with your head coach and Kalen DeBoer and how the next. I think it's real crucial for him next year. I mean, they were so close this year.
Yeah, and kind of touching base, I know this goes past 10 years, but in the Saban era alone, Nick Saban has 72 players starting or sitting on an NFL roster.
Nuts.
I mean, that's crazy. But, can Kalen DeBoer keep up with that? Can he fill those shoes? That's going to be the biggest question. He was close this year, did get to a bowl game.
And lost.
Yeah, the only team I know to lose to Michigan twice in the same year.
Well, but then again, I don't think that's on DeBoer. I mean, I guess it's the play calling, but the offensive line still had a lot of struggles this year. Milroe really struggled. I think if I had one person to pick in the SEC that really, I don't say bummed me out or that didn't live up to the hype of what he had was Jalen Milroe. And that's because he's a super good kid, but I think his draft stock and off, especially with the Senior Bowl performance, the interceptions, the wrong routes and reads, that's beside. We're talking about team, not just Jalen. So,
but you go back to, and I kind of saved this because I know a lot of times on these podcasts I jump the gun and talk about players and everything. But Jalen Milroe is one of those guys that we talked about. team players. I know that he may not have been the best option, but he was one to try and rally his team.
Most definitely. Once, the game that he got set out for a half and he come back the next week and played lights out. And that goes to
or the USF game when they played Ty Simpson and Tyler Buckner the whole game. And nearly lost that one under Nick Saban.
Yeah, that was and that goes to the coaching. Once you realize that and you see that you're struggling, that's when, who was it? Not Kentucky. Might have been one of the Kentucky games where Vandergrift was struggling. They brought in the backup. And he has a pretty good game, gets them to a win.
Well, the most memorable one is going to be the national title game.
Jalen and Tua.
Jalen is struggling. You bring Tua in. It's 2nd and 25. He drops a bomb to Devontae Smith in the corner of the end zone.
Right in the breadbasket. So, again, no surprise, guys. These are your top 3 teams: Alabama, Georgia, LSU, Florida, and Auburn rounding out the top 5. Again, I like those 3 teams being at the top. I see Georgia and LSU could possibly rise, but depending on the next crucial 3 or 4 years for here, Alabama, whether they stay elite as Nick Saban, which nobody can fill Saban's shoes, especially in this college football era, but it is what it is. And before we get to hit the right button, Dingus. Before we jump into this, I just realized I didn't go see who. I think not Missouri. Who's under Ole Miss?
So
if you do it alphabetical order, A B C D E F G H L M N.
Looking at
you better look at it. I'm gonna sound like an idiot for the next.
SEC teams. So we're doing Ole Miss right now.
We're doing Ole Miss and
South Carolina.
We're doing South Carolina too.
Okay.
So Tennessee.
Yes, Tennessee.
All right. So I will try to for I forgot all about it because.
Are you going to do 1 or are you doing 2?
I'll see how many logos, but hopefully I can get them posted tomorrow, depending on how many different variations of logos. I might try to squeeze 2 in.
Texas is under Tennessee.
If there's only 2 more, I might just do 2 for this week and 2 for next week, so we can get them and then go ahead and get the bracket in. So let's get rolling here. Ole Miss was for this week. Not a whole lot of jumping up and down for this, and as we all figure what happened, since it's a little bit different, the winner was the 1970 Ole Miss Rebel with the cane propped up. So my favorite, I'm the retro logo person. I like this one.
My favorite.
Yeah, my favorite. I just didn't see, because again, we've talked about they've gone through so many mascot changes and this, that, and the other. We thought there could have been more from their logo. Next is the South Carolina Gamecocks. Really stayed true to the Gamecock, kept it in all of them. Brandon and Jud seen a lot of the JSU stuff here, and the winner of this one, the 1966 to 1975. This is, I can't see what that says. Something, I don't know. But I do like I kind of really liked the first one before that because he just looked wild and crazy. But this is a little more subdued. Gamecock. As we get to. So, and I do apologize for not having the next one because, like I said, last minute productions.
Thanks for making the call to go under review. Join us next time as we go to the monitors. Until then, keep your flag handy.